Hi everyone, my name is Carolina and I'm going to be talking to you about my collections management assignment of weight training materials at the Idea Exchange. So a little bit about the Idea Exchange. It is the public library for Cambridge, Ontario. It has a population of 127,000. The first library branch was founded in 1836. It has 5 branches: Queen's Square, Preston, Hespeler, Clemens Mill, which is attached to a high school, and Design at Riverside, which isn't actually a branch with books as you would regularly think of, but it was created in tandem with the University of Waterloo for their engineering program, so it kind of has a makerspace in it. The mission statement for the Idea Exchange is that the Idea Exchange supports and inspires our community in the exploration of reading, arts, innovation, and learning. So the subject that I chose was weight training materials, so that essentially encompassed any material that was about or included exercises with weights for any age, any gender, and any stature, and in any material. So some of the collection evaluation methods that I used for the print, visual, and ebook materials that were found within this collection, some were the same across the board and some are different. Across the board, if the information was inaccurate or outdated which meant prior to 2000, then it was deselected. For print and visual materials, if the material was damaged beyond repair, or if the repair cost more than the actual item, then it was deselected. Across the board, if there was multiple copies and there was no longer high demand for them, then we would downsize to the one and deselect the other copies. For print materials and visual, if the item had not been circulated within the last 4 years, then it would be discarded. But for ebook materials, it would be 2 because the cost of housing an ebook material is a lot more expensive than print or visual because of the subscription costs. So the authority across the board, if the authority of the author had been discredited, that's reason for deselection. And then only for visual and ebook materials if the format is no longer compatible. So that would be, for example, VHS, no longer use VHS, so we don't see it in the library. So in the future, it's possible that the ebook format would no longer be compatible with a certain device. So there's some exceptions to this rule. However, if an item is part of a series and the rest of the series is being circulated often, then we would wait another 2 years to reevaluate that item. And second, if the material was created or produced locally and had some sort of local historic merit. You never know. So some of my major findings during this assignment: the majority of the collection for weight training materials was actually between 2000 and 2010, which is a pretty good time. The amount of items were primarily books, so 71% was at books. Second came DVDs, and lastly at 6% was ebooks. There was actually only one CrossFit book in the collection, which I found quite weird, seeing as it's very topical and trendy right now. There's no physical magazines part of the collection. You can find magazines such as Men's Health, Women's Health, Men's Fitness kind of things on the platform of Zinio, but when searching in the catalog, you can't find any physical copies. So if someone just wanted to go to the library to look at a magazine, which is a good source of information for weight training exercises, they wouldn't be able to use that. There was also no French materials in this collection. And then lastly, funny enough, from the genesis of this assignment part 1 all the way to the end here, the library itself has weeded some of the older materials for me, so it kind of did a little bit of my job, which was great. So some of the selection process, the selection tools are probably similar to a lot of what you guys used. However, different ones that I would have used were bodybuilding.com, Fitness Magazine, and Muscle and Strength. So the items that were selected to be added to the collection were like 99% after 2010. And out of the categories that were created, like the subcategories from the materials, I needed more fitness program type and exercise example type materials, so there was more of those that were acquired. And I I diversified the subject matter of the materials to cover age, stature, height, and also other sports, which, for example, was there was one book which was weight training in hockey. So the deselection process, from the get-go of the first part of the assignment, I checked regularly to see if any of the items were borrowed, and during that time there was only one item that was borrowed out of the ones that were deselected. So, however, I don't know the actual statistics for the items, and some were outdated, so they were pre-2000s, like in the 90s or even in the 80s. There was a lot of them which were multiple copies, but none of them were being circulated during this time of 2 months or so. So we downsized, and I was able to check out some of the books. So I was able to see that they were damaged with things like coffee, water stains, or even covers that were splitting. And out of the categories, there was too many materials kind of in one category that was unnecessary, kind of overdoing it. However, that's not one criteria to use to deselect, but combined with a bunch of others, it makes sense. So all in all, it was 17 items that were removed from the collection. So challenges that I found during this assignment: the different search terms other than weight training, because at the beginning I was searching for weight training items in the catalog, but then realized that when I looked up strength training, it brought up exactly what I had defined as being weight training items, but they were bringing up different titles that didn't come up for weight training. And I started to realize that bodybuilding as well has weight training within it, CrossFit, HIIT. So I needed to really broaden what it was that I assumed to think of weight training. The second was, does older really mean outdated? For example, the New Modern Encyclopedia of Bodybuilding by Arnold Schwarzenegger was it came out in 1989. However, that book has a lot of the same content that is being produced today. And actually, Arnold Schwarzenegger has created a lot of the exercises that we use today. There's even ones named after him, like the Arnold Press and whatnot. So just because it's older, does that really mean it's outdated? Third, finding credible items. In the health and wellness area, we know that it's difficult to find sources that are credible, because it's very easy for people to just kind of make a website, create a book, and say that they know these things. And then lastly, one thing that wasn't really considered was shelf space. And because I was able to visit the library and look at the collection, I started to realize that I didn't take into account the amount of books that were deselected to the amount of books that were acquired, and to actually match up to see if there would be enough space to put those things on the shelf. So these are some of my references, and thank you for listening.